Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
For over a century, we've been gripped by the story of Titanic, but it's a story often told in black and white. Yet the pride of the White Star Line fleet was a blaze of color with vivid green furniture, rose-colored carpets, and a hull trimmed with gleaming gold paint. Now, the monochrome photographs of what was the largest moving object on the planet when she launched on May 31, 1911, have been colorized using the latest 21st century techniques for a new two-part Channel 4 series, Titanic in Color, which promises to transform the way we see the doomed ship and her ill-fated passengers. The images are a pertinent reminder of the immense human tragedy which ruined countless lives when Titanic sank on her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York on April 15, 1912, with an estimated 2,224 people on board and only 20 lifeboats. While 1,500 people lost their lives, survivors were forever haunted by the disaster, particularly Lookout Frederick Fleet, one of at least 11 survivors who took their own lives in the aftermath. Meanwhile, a haunting image shows widow Charlotte Collier, from Surrey, clutching a White Star Line blanket, still looking shocked and grief-stricken a month after the disaster which claimed the life of her husband. 4 years later, she died from TB, leaving her daughter Marjorie an orphan. Widow clutches blanket that kept her warm in the lifeboat. A month after the Titanic sank, second-class passengers Charlotte Collier and her daughter Marjorie, 7, were photographed and interviewed by an American newspaper. On Charlotte's lap is the White Star Line blanket that kept them both warm in a lifeboat. Together with her husband Harvey, the family left Hampshire to start a new life in Idaho where they hoped the climate would help Charlotte's tuberculosis. As the ship was going down, Charlotte, dressed in a nightgown, clung to Harvey and only got in the lifeboat after a member of the crew threw their daughter in first. Charlotte wrote to her mother, "How can I live without him? If they had not wrenched Madge from me, I should have stayed and gone with him." Harvey drowned with all their life savings in his jacket pocket. For years after the disaster, Charlotte died of tuberculosis, after which Marjorie was brought up by her uncle, the lookout, who was taunted by strangers. At 11:39 p.m. on Sunday, April 14, in the Titanic's crow's nest, Lookout Frederick Fleet, a 25-year-old former Barnardo's boy, saw a black object high above the water. Fleet rang the brass bell above him 3 times and called the ship's bridge, yelling, "Iceberg dead ahead." The Titanic altered course, but it was too late. 46,000 tons of steel and wood collided with 500,000 tons of ice, and the liner was punctured below the waterline multiple times. Frederick survived the disaster, but, as the lookout who spotted the iceberg too late, he was an embarrassment for the White Star Line and so was forced to work for other shipping companies. In the 1960s, he ended up selling newspapers on the streets of Southampton, sometimes taunted by passers-by shouting, "Hello, Fred. Seen any icebergs lately?" He hanged himself from his washing line in January 1965, shortly after his wife died, one of at least 11 Titanic survivors who took their own life. Young survivor who tragically died 3 years later. This photograph was taken a few hours before the Titanic picked up passengers from Queenstown. It shows 6-year-old Robert Douglas Speddon spinning atop on the first-class promenade deck, watched by his father Frederick. Young Robert slept through the disaster, eventually waking up in a lifeboat next to his parents. Tragically, 3 years later Robert was knocked down and killed by a car. The photographer was Jesuit theological student Frank Brown, who was traveling from Southampton to Queenstown. He was befriended by an American couple who offered to pay his fare to New York, but his boss, in an act which probably saved his life, ordered him off the ship. While on board, he captured an image of his first-class cabin, which has also been colorized for the show. Contrary to the popular saying, the Titanic did not have deck chairs to rearrange. Instead, it had steamer chairs, like the one in the background, which could be hired for the whole voyage for 4 shillings. Gym instructor who refused a life jacket. The ship boasted a state-of-the